When I moved to West Haven Drive, May of 1960, we moved into 1711 West Haven, and Mom and the Kometz family had built that home and had been there for a little while, and that was 1715 West Haven, so 2 houses away. And we moved in, and we that first weekend, Andy, her dad, and her brother Andy and her brother Bob walked over to our house and said, is there anything we can do to help? Because the grass hadn't been mowed and whatever. So they helped us mow the yard, and I met her brothers immediately. I mean, it wasn't a day that we hadn't lived there, and I met her brothers.
I always thought he was the cool older boy on the block. Always had a little bit of a crush on him as like when I was like in middle school and stuff, because he was 4 years older than me. So when I was in like junior high, he was in high school. I babysat for his brothers because he was so much older. He was 8 and 10 years older than his brothers. So he would be out with his high school friends doing things he probably shouldn't have been doing. And I was home, in his home, babysitting my now brother-in-laws. It's really kind of weird.
But growing up with the Kometz family, they were family. And so when I left Champaign after I graduated from U of I in 1974 and went to DeKalb, Illinois to work as a 4-H and youth advisor, I came back, and when I came back in 78, your mom was graduating from the University of Illinois. And I ran into her at the Illini bookstore.
And we were in there, and I ran into him, and it was like, Mark, hi. And he was like,
Janis, how are you? And I looked at her and I went, damn, you're not a little girl anymore, you're a woman.
You can say that to her. But
oh, hell no. Hell no.
Janis, you've changed. All of a sudden he thought I was grown up, you know.
From that point on, we did different things. Yeah, a spark went off, and I didn't know it probably. But that was in 78, and then
Christmas time, he comes to our house to visit because he used to be a neighbor, and then his family moved to Urbana, but he had fond memories of growing up on West Haven. So a lot of times when he would be home during the holidays, he would come to our house and just visit with the family, and I always loved seeing him. I thought he was so cute and everything. So anyway, we were sitting around the table, and it was Bob and me and Anne Marie and him, and we were like, what are you doing on New Year's Eve? I don't know, what are we doing? And Dad said, well, I have some extra tickets to this party at the Round Barn.
So we go, okay, we just went as 4 people, we're not dates, of course. So we went and we got champagne hammered.
We got so drunk, but we had so much fun. We decorated the chandelier, we were dancing all night.
There's champagne glasses on the hedge out front. There's a champagne bottles in the yard.
My dad got so mad at us for doing that. So we were all in the living room, and we come in, Jennifer was having a slumber party. So Jennifer's like 11 years old, and we're older. We come in, Bob goes in, they have this beanbag chair, and here she's these little girls, and he comes in, he's drunk, falls in the beanbag chair, hits his head on the TV and goes, ah, shit. And these little girls are like,
Amory's
takes off her pantyhose and puts them in the cookie jar. You know the cookie jar that looked like a jug that Grandma had? She stuck them in the cookie jar.
We just had a blast. But that night when we got home, I'm laying on the floor in the living room, and Janis was laying on the floor over there, and B came in and she said, you kids need to get to bed. And we're like, okay. You know, so she put me in the back room. But before we went to bed, I reached my hand over like this, and your mom reached her hand over.
And we held hands. And it was like, that was the first thing.
And I looked at her and she looked at me, and I don't know what she felt, but I was like, damn, girl, I'm feeling something right now. I don't know if I've ever felt this before, and you're like a sister to me, so maybe I shouldn't be feeling these feelings, you know. Anyway, I didn't date her, of course, but then there was an opportunity to go to a Johnny Cash concert.
Early in the morning, I know a lot of people didn't feel too good today. And all right, I'll walk the line.
February 16th, Round Barn was like a nice restaurant in town, and we never went out to eat, but it was me and my mom and dad and my sister Jennifer. The 4 of us went for dinner on a Friday night.
Andy walks back to go to the bathroom by our table. Andy, come in and goes, what are you doing here? Oh, I said, we're all going to the Johnny Cash concert tonight. And I said I was going to take Janice, but I couldn't get a hold of her. He goes,
We'll go over and ask her. And I'm like, so he then, Mark gets up, walks over to this table.
Andy goes, Mark has something to ask you, Janice. And she looks up at me like, oh shit, what? And I go, we're going to the Johnny Cash concert tonight. I have an extra ticket. Would you like to go? And she was like, yeah, I guess. And it was the most awkward.
And to this day, I still don't believe that he really tried to call me. He said he tried to call me, and I'm like, yeah, right. So I went with him, and it was Johnny Cash.
Because you're mine, I walk the line.
And then when it's over with, I drive her home, take her up the front door, but I didn't kiss her. Said, thank you for going with me. And I said, I tried to call you. And she's like, mm-hmm. You know, kind of one of those like, sure you did.
He brought me home, did not give me a kiss on the front step. That was February 16th. And then he didn't ask me out. Nothing happened. We would go like in April, we went to this place called the Poison Apple with a group of people, and we danced. And one time he was making out with a girl that had zits all over her neck. And I'm like, ugh, if that's what he wants, go for it, you know. So then after that, it was getting close to Memorial Day.
That year we went to the Indy 500, 1979.
He asked me to go, so I said, okay. So we went, and we got up, and by 6 in the morning, we were out, lined up, getting ready to go into the infield. And of course, there was a lot of beer drinking involved, and it was a very hot day. And he'll always joke about the yellow car going around the racetrack, because I thought one yellow car went by, and then another one, I go, wow, that one's fast. It was just a different yellow car, and he still laughs about that. But in the car on the way home, Bob and this girl named Sweaty Betty were in the front seat. Sweaty Betty, when we were there, was so drunk she dropped trowel right in front of the policeman and peed right in front of the policeman. I mean, that's how crazy this was. We weren't that bad. But so they were in the front seat, and Dad and I were in the back seat, and that's when we had our first kiss, was in the back seat.
And then from there on, we dated, you know. And then February 16th of 1980, a year after our first date with Johnny Cash, that's when I proposed to her.
We got married August 2nd. We decided on a date, and then of course we went and checked venues and stuff like that.
Watch that gal come down the aisle, and she's all decked, and she's walking with her dad, and ooh, yeah, you're like, this is pretty damn cool.
Dad cried and I didn't. I wasn't as very emotional back then. I mean, Dad was the one that was crying during the ceremony, and I was cool as a cucumber. I was in a little state of shock when I got halfway down the aisle and I looked, and St. Matthew's Church was full of people, and I'm like, all these people came here for me. All my aunts and uncles, and both my parents were from big families, all came. Our reception was supposed to be from 4 the wedding was at 2 in the afternoon or 2:30 or something. The reception was from 4 to 7, and we just had like a little 3-piece duet, you know, like music, just like background music. We had those hors d'oeuvres, and that was going to be it. Well, then Dad didn't tell me, and so we're visiting, and did Dad tell this whole story about how he got drunk? Okay, so I don't need to repeat that, but I was really mad.
Oh, I don't know, the receiving line was over with, and everybody's been eating dinner, and Janice and I haven't eaten yet, and the food's basically gone. And then the guys were over at the bar, and hey, Changnon, let's do a toast. So I went over to the bar, and we did a schnapps, just a peppermint schnapps toast. And I'll be, toast to Marc Changnon, boom, and I did a schnapps. And then somebody else said, hey, I missed it, and we did one more. So I did 2 peppermint schnapps, boom, on an empty stomach, okay? Not good. And then I'm walking to the table to get some food. I thought there's got to be something to eat over here. And I got about almost to the table, and a guy taps me on the shoulder. Turn around, and Tracy Nugent, who's now an attorney in Champaign, said, Changnon, I didn't get to toast with you. Here. And he hands me a little shot glass, clear, and I thought it was another schnapps. So he goes, hope you have a great wedding, blah, 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 great future. And we click glasses, and boom. And it was Everclear, 180 proof. And that shit went down my throat and got about to here, and I was like, oh, this is not good. And within a few minutes, I was
talking to people, and I'd notice, where is Mark? I'd look around, I didn't see him anywhere. I didn't see him anywhere.
My groomsmen, John Porter, Tom Dorsey, all these guys, Dave, my brother, they just took me out the door and walked up to the pancake place. We walk into pancake place. Tom Dorsey goes into the kitchen, and your now uncle Scott Martins was working in the kitchen. He didn't know. And they go, "We need a plate of food right now. What do you got?" And they filled up a plate of food with eggs and bread and all kind. And they brought it out to my table, and they said, "Eat." And I just sat there eating. And for about 25 minutes, and so here's the wedding. Basically, the men on the wedding party and the groom aren't at the wedding reception. And Mom's like,
where is he, But, and the other thing too is while I'm visiting with people, I'm seeing all these kids coming in carrying these huge instruments. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I was kind of floating on cloud 9 and wasn't really paying attention. I probably didn't notice he was gone for quite a while before I finally noticed that he was not around. And so then it turned out that my dad, who was constantly, the mover and the shaker, had good friends with the man who was the director of Parkland College's jazz band. So we had this 20-piece jazz band come in and play and the wedding reception went on till like 11:30 or 12. Then we had so much fun. So once the music came and we started, because it was supposed to be done by 7. And all that happened, we had a blast.
I look at your mom and our relationship, that's paramount to me. I feel, I don't know how fortunate you can be, but to have fallen in love with your mom and married her in 1980, 40 years, we have a tremendous partnership. Is it perfect? Heck no. And am I perfect? No way. And is she perfect? No way. But we have that ability to listen to one another and not speak over one another. And I think that's been a key. Listening is a key, communications is key. And it's amazing.